Yashodanandana Prachachanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnu Padma Mahamsa Pravichakarat Jai Astadala Sati Sivamekti Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premananda Hari. Okay, so let's read from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. To continue from from here. So that's Srila Prabhupada in Russia, or after his visit. In a farewell letter to Professor Kotovsky, Prabhupada tried to encourage further correspondence. You wanted to see the manuscripts of my lectures, therefore I am sending herewith an introduction to the lectures, and if you so desire, I shall be glad to send essays on these subjects. Number 1, Vedic conceptions of socialism and communism. Number 2, scientific values of classless society. And number 3, knowledge by authoritative tradition. In a letter to Mal Krishna, Prabhupada summed up his Moscow visit. The city is well planned. There are big houses and roads, and at daytime the streets are busy with buses, cars, and underground trains, which are far better than American or English. The underground streets are very neat and clean. The surface streets are also daily washed, but there is some difficulty in collecting vegetarian foodstuffs. Still, we are cooking our meals by the cooker, which has saved our lives. We talked with one big professor, Mr. Kotovsky, and Shyamasundar talked with many great writers and musicians. 2 boys are working with us, one Indian and one Russian. So there's good prospect for opening a center. Although the atmosphere is not very good, the embassy was no help, so our visit to Moscow was not so successful, but for the future it is hopeful. Tomorrow I go to Paris for one day, then to San Francisco Ratha Yatra, and then I shall come back to London. Amazing Prabhupada's vision. The two boys were interested, and good prospect to open a center. Srila Prabhupada's transcendental vision. Paris, June 25th, 1971. Srila Prabhupada was lying on the couch in the conference room of the Indian tourist office, having just come from Orly airport. Two disciples, Aradhan and his wife Shantanu, had come with him in the taxi and were the only others in the room. Since there was to be a press conference later, Prabhupada said he wanted to rest and he closed his eyes. At the airport, Paris immigration officials had detained Prabhupada while some 30 European devotees, none of whom had ever met him, had waited anxiously. They had glimpsed him as he had walked from the plane to the terminal building, and they had watched him carry his sannyas danda with umbrella strapped to it. He had waved to them, holding up his speed bag, but then he had been kept from them just beyond a thin wall until finally, after 2 hours, Paris immigration had allowed him through. The Paris devotees had not arranged a car for Prabhupada, so when he asked for one, several devotees had run off to hail a taxi. When the taxi had arrived, Prabhupada, along with Aradhan and Shantanu, had started for the Indian tourist office, leaving the others to join him later. After a brief rest, Prabhupada opened his eyes and saw Aradhan, Shantanu, and Shyama Sundar in the room. The other devotees and the press would be arriving soon. As Prabhupada sat up, Shantanu offered him some mango, and Srila Prabhupada smiled. Yogeshwara. I sat outside the door to Prabhupada's room, eating the peel of mango Prabhupada had eaten. My heart was pounding, and I had no idea what it was going to be like after having been initiated for a year and a half and having never met my spiritual master personally. But now, knowing that he was just behind that door. Then Shyama Sundar opened the door and peered out and saw me sitting there. He stuck his head back inside the door and said, "There is a devotee here. Shall I let him in now, Srila Prabhupada?" I peeked around the door and Srila Prabhupada, who had been lying down on the couch, was now sitting up with his hand on his knees very solidly with a royal, majestic look. He responded to Shyama Sundar's question by motioning with his hand that we could all come in. It was the first perfect thing I had ever seen in my life, that one gesture. So I came in and immediately fell flat on the floor, and then I understood that now I am with my spiritual master. Gradually, the devotees began arriving from the airport, and they came into Prabhupada's room. The press also arrived. As Prabhupada spoke warmly and pleasantly with his followers, encouraging them in their preaching and telling them of his own recent preaching in Moscow. Hardly any of the devotees had ever been with their spiritual master before, and Lochananda began introducing them to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Vilas. I arrived late, and when I came in, I was mixed up with surprise, with elation, with egotistical pride, and with amazement that the Lord's pure devotee was there. I walked in with Ganesham, the boy who had started translating some of Prabhupada's books into French. The room was almost filled, and Ganesham immediately sat down in the back. I was the president of the temple, and I was very proud and puffed up about it. So I made my way all the way up to the front where Srila Prabhupada was, and I sat down right next to him. I looked at him, expecting him to look at me and smile or something, some recognition, but he didn't look at me at all. Lochananda was introducing all the devotees to Prabhupada. Lochananda said, "This is Gyanasham, he's the translator." Prabhupada said, "Where is he?" And everyone looked around to Gyanasham in the back. Prabhupada said, "Let him stand up, please." Gyanasham stood, and Prabhupada looked at him and smiled and said, "Oh, thank you very much." Right then I felt a little funny. I sat there wondering, what have I done? I've walked all the way up to the front, and I'm expecting so much recognition. Then Lochananda said, "This is Hari Vilas. He's the president of the temple." Prabhupada didn't even look at me, and I knew, yes, I had made a big mistake. I began to realize, this is my spiritual master. Because immediately he had acted in such a way as to point out a great fault in me. Reporters began their questioning, and Prabhupada patiently answered them, taking advantage of their sometimes superficial questions to elaborate on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and explain the Krishna consciousness movement. The conference ran 1 hour. As Prabhupada left the Indian tourist office, he found that there was no car to take him to the temple, while several devotees ran around trying to find a taxi. Prabhupada waited, standing before a sidewalk cafe. Thinking that Prabhupada must be tired from the rigorous press conference and his long flight from Moscow, one of the devotees asked, Srila Prabhupada, would you like to sit here for a minute? And the devotee pulled one of the cafe chairs out away from its table. What is this place? Prabhupada asked. This is a sidewalk cafe, the devotee replied. What do people do here? Do they smoke and drink? Yes, Srila Prabhupada, it's a cafe. They serve alcoholic beverages. No, Prabhupada replied. Guru cannot sit in such a place. When Srila Prabhupada reached the temple, he bathed and took prasadam. The next day he was scheduled to leave for Los Angeles, and his one day in Paris was filled with outside engagements. He rested and again went out to preach. I think we're gonna stop here, otherwise we run out of time for the Bhagavatam, even though the chapter is almost finished. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, Text 33. So we're still in the forest of enjoyment. So this verse doesn't have a meter, so I just read through it once and then we do the word by word and go into the translation and so forth. Evam advanyavarundano mrityu gaja vayat tamasi giri kandara traye. Word by word, please repeat. Evam, in this way. Advani, on the path of sense gratification. Avarundhana, being confined, he forgets the real purpose of life. Mrityu gaja bayat, out of fear of the elephant of death. Tamasi, in the darkness. Giri kandara praye, similar to the dark caves in the mountains. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activities. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in a mountain cave. Purport. Everyone is afraid of death, and however strong a materialistic person may be, when there is disease and old age, one must certainly accept death's notice. The conditioned soul becomes very morose to receive notice of death. His fear is compared to the fear experienced upon entering a dark mountain cave, and death is compared to a great elephant. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjala Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Translation once more. In this material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activities. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in a mountain cave. That's a very, very nice verse with lots of points in there, and as always, there's a comparison between materialistic life and spiritual life, and a very simple way to define what is material and what is spiritual is simply to say material is all about me and spiritual is all about Krishna. It's a very simple way of defining and remembering what is what. So a materialistic person lives himself as in the center of all activities. And he identifies with the body, with the mind, with his intelligence. And he tries to please his body, mind, and intelligence in so many ways, which Srila Prabhupada kindly, or the Bhagavatam kindly describes here as mischievous, which is kind of a cute way of saying sinful, because sinful is the next word. So lots of nonsense activities, just to please the senses for some temporary enjoyment. Because if we forget Krishna, we also forget that we are not this body, that we're not this mind and this intelligence. And we have to get taste somewhere. We are pleasure seeking. The soul is Satchit Ananda. Well, we eternal, full of knowledge, which is pretty much covered in this material world, and Ananda, blissful, but only when connected to, by nature we are, but then ultimately that only comes out in connection with Krishna. So we're looking for that pleasure, we're seeking that pleasure. But forgetting Krishna, we don't know where to look, and we look in this material world. And we heard in this chapter before about monkeys, how we are all monkey-like, running around, doing monkey business. And that reminded me of a situation when I came to New Zealand, came to Krishna consciousness, was practicing maybe for 2 years, and then I had to find I had a student visa and had to find work, and I found only work as a parking warden, and it was the Friday and Saturday night shift, so basically till 2, 3 in the morning, all within the city or North Shore, driving around and yeah, fine. Well, put out infringement notices to people who didn't pay their parking or were overdue. So that was my job. So I was at night in the city center, at night in the CBD, and when I finished, this was right at Queen Street, I had to walk back towards the loft I was living nearby. And my God, when you're at night in the city, it really sounds like a jungle. It's a lot of screaming and laughing, and I was shocked to hear. It's like monkeys running around and screaming. It's like really like that. So Bhagavatam is not exaggerating. Yeah. So we have the concrete jungle, and it's madness. People drunk and being silly and thinking they're enjoying, but actually they have to accept the threefold miseries. The latest the next morning when they can't, whenever they wake up with a headache or with a person next to them they don't know, so many nonsense activities, and so much suffering is actually happening because of that, because we are engaging with the material energy, and we have to take it both, pleasure and pain, right? And both are temporary, and we on this roller coaster as a monkey, being thrown from one sensation to the next. And while living a life like this, uh, uh, obviously we're not getting that fulfillment we're actually seeking, because that fulfillment is only in relationship with Krishna, because we are parts and parcels. So we become actually quite frustrated, morose. We're not satisfied, because material sense enjoyment cannot ultimately not bring satisfaction to the soul. And then when old age approaches, and there's also so many examples, how we live in a denial that ultimately we have to die. That's such a big topic, death. It's actually such a important and big topic. So we see people in materialistic life avoiding that topic, or even thinking about it. When you grow old, we have the great, or we have the examples here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like Hiranyakashipu. He tries to avoid death by performing so many austerities. He was just bones. All the rest was eaten by ants. Just to get that benediction of of deathlessness, but he couldn't get it because it's simply not possible in the material world. But we endeavor so hard to cheat death some way or other. And we have all the little Hiranyakashipus now in this Kali Yuga, they put on, anti-aging cream so the skin stays young, right? We put makeup on, to cover up the wrinkly skin with, wigs. If you have hair loss, you put a wig on, and so many things, just so we're not facing the inevitable, that disease and old age will ultimately lead to death. Because when we identify as the body, we have a problem, because the body will finish. And that puts us in a fearful condition, because we cannot conceive actually of non-existence, because we are soul, we are eternal. There's, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all those kings. So we are eternal. So being faced with non-existence is pretty scary. So if you misidentify with the body and the mind and the intelligence, it's all finished at death. So it's a scary situation. And and it's compared here as the elephant in the room. It's like we just, the elephant is there, and we try to ignore it, but sooner or later, he may just trample us. And so it's a very difficult situation. And I remember also as a child, one situation on a birthday party from one auntie or uncle, I don't even know, I can't remember, and there was a whole bunch of old people in this room. And they were all siblings. I think my grandmother had 6 other siblings. So, and they only talked about the diseases, the false teeth wobbling in their mouths. The old ladies, often you see, they have the lipstick, and then the lipstick is smeared on the teeth because they don't have control. It's such a disgraceful situation, actually. No dignity. People cannot face that topic because they don't have the knowledge, unfortunately, to understand their nature, who they actually are. and then they try to live in denial of the inevitable. And we know from the Mahabharata the situation where Yamaraj in disguise questioned Yudhishthira after his brothers all drank the water and passed away, so he had to rescue his brothers, and so he had to do this quiz. And one of the questions was, what is the most amazing thing in this world? And Yudhishthira replied that the most amazing thing is that everyone will face death, but we think it's not gonna affect us. We think that death is not gonna come to us. That's the most amazing thing, because it's all around us. And yeah, there's another pastime, but not in the Bhagavatam. It's actually the life of Siddhartha, of Buddha. He was the prince, and his parents, they wanted to shield him from all those experiences. You know, he was shielded in the palace, and wherever he went, the parents made sure he will not see a deceased person, he will not see an old person, and he will not see death. So his parents made sure that everything is neat and beautiful around him. And also when he visited in the city, they would clean up, do their best to hide this part of life from him for whatever reason that was. I cannot remember. And then one day he was seeing a sick person. He was astonished. Oh, what is this person? Oh, he's and the servants had to tell him, oh well, he's sick. And that shocked him. Okay, because he never seen a sick person. Imagine you never see a sick person for like 20 years or so. I'm not sure what age he was in. You know, that's quite astonishing. And then obviously an old person and also some dead body. And that made him think. You know, so yeah, when we're faced with death, we are suddenly contemplating. But oftentimes that doesn't last long. Right? People go to funerals and then they have this moment of, but then quickly, they try to forget. In Germany, when you go to funerals, right after you go to a restaurant, to a bar, and just drink and eat to forget, you know, to comfort, for some comfort. That's how it's called, the comforter. That's the when I translate it, that's how it's called. So you're faced with a situation, but rather than taking the opportunity, you try to push it aside straight away, and not think too deeply about it. So you can go along with your materialistic life until it hits you. And then, then you see the, how we call them in the newspapers, the death announcements, which person died. And usually it's like unexpectedly and suddenly. So what is unexpected, The teeth are falling out, the skin is wrinkly, the hair is all white, the body, shrinks, it's not growing anymore, it's shrinking. And what is unexpected? You have so many warnings, right? But that's materialistic life. The material life means you live in a denial of the reality, even the material reality. And that's very scary, very fearful at the end of your life. But for a devotee, death is something different. If we lived our life and in remembrance of our relationship with Krishna, engaging in devotional service, then death is not a scary thing. We understand our eternal nature, and death will be that moment when we finally all the hindrances, all the material impediments to devotional service is taken away, and we can see Krishna face to face. Right? That's what death is for a devotee. It's just, maybe we go back home, back to Godhead. Maybe we have to take another life. As long as Krishna is there, then there is no need to fear. But that very much depends on our relationship. If we actually developed a relationship with Krishna, and how deep that relationship is. And one nice incident, Devaki Mataji shares in one of her lectures, is it happened in Ukraine, where a Mataji left her body. She was old, and devotees were asking her, so, you want to go back to Krishna? And she answered no. And everyone was shocked and inquired, why is this? And then she said, well, I don't have a relationship with him. And that's something which is very instructive, because devotional service is not about the externals. It's not about being on the altar and circling the lamp and all the other items and doing doing all those devotional activities in a ritualistic manner. All those activities we perform as devotees are meant to bring out our relationship with Krishna, right? And devotional and any relationship is based on service. So devotional service should bring out our relationship to Krishna. And that's the only goal of any activities in devotional service, is to nurture that relationship. And that can be, because we all have different relationships, that can be in so many different ways, right? Service there's so many different types of services, so many different relationships we can have with Krishna. Right? But that's the ultimate purpose of devotional service, is to develop and deepen that relationship. Because that's the only thing we can keep at the time of death. All the other things, imagine you're such a rich person, you have no idea about Krishna, you have so much wealth and such a big family and so on, and then you're faced with death and you can't take anything, nothing can keep you shelter. Krishna is the only thing we can keep at the end of life. So within this lifetime, we have this great opportunity of developing that relationship with Krishna. We're very fortunate to have Srila Prabhupada coming to the West, bringing us Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, bringing us knowledge about Krishna, so we're not wasting our life being thrown into the material whirlpool, have to suffer the threefold miseries. And at the end of our life, we can go. We have the opportunity to remember Krishna, right? And so we're very fortunate in that aspect. But it all depends really on that relationship. Can we, by everything we're doing, can we develop that relationship? And the first and foremost item to do that is attentiveness. Right? We chant, we can either just blabber some syllables, or which also has some effect, of course, but not very much in terms of our relationship with Krishna. It doesn't have very much when you just blabber and your mind is somewhere else, enjoying some ideas, some more important things on the mental platform. No, we can chant attentively, mindfully turning towards Krishna and longing for that relationship. Because japa is we can transform japa into our personal time, into quality time with Krishna, where we can associate with him, because we understand as devotees his holy name is not different from him. That means actually Krishna is right there. But when we do other things, while we chant on the physical level, on the bodily level, we do so many things, well, what are we doing? We turn away. Even though Krishna is there, we turn our back to him. If we have so many ideas what to do and what to do later and what so on, and the mind is all over the place, that also shows we have so many more important things to do than, okay, Krishna is here, but you wait, I have other things to think about, right? So if we use that time to mindfully turn towards Krishna during japa, and for that in any other service we're doing, if we understand, okay, I'm on the altar, I'm offering those items, I'm offering flowers to Krishna personally, because he's present on the altar in his Achavigraha, in his deity form. Right? When this consciousness is there, then something in the relationship will happen. If that attentiveness, this care is given in the activities we do, then something in the relationship will happen. And that's through service. Friends serve friends, husband serves wives, wife serves husband, and so on. Any relationship is based on service. Right? So we can understand that by attentively, consciously engaging in service to Krishna, we develop that relationship. And we don't have to worry actually about anything else, right? We don't have to get all sentimental and approach our relationship with Krishna in a sentimental way, and have to imagine ourselves being, a friend, or that's going to sahaja areas. No, we don't have to practice being a peacock or something, just because we think that's our relationship in Vrindavan with Krishna, and we get all, carried away by our mind and so on. No, that's nonsense. We have to engage in devotional service according to the instructions of Guru and the scriptures, and because service is the foundation of all other relationships. Krishna will reveal to us whatever relationship we may have with him once we fully 100% established in service, in dasya. Dasya is there in all other rasas. So all we have to do is actually becoming a true servant. And that means from the heart. It's not about the external activities, so much service, this here and that there, and you're running around doing so much service, and you may do all that service on a false ego platform, because just see what a great devotee I am. No, that's not it. We don't want anything in return for that service. Prahlad Maharaj says in his, in the 7th canto that if you want anything in return for your service, you are not servant, you are merchant. Right? You're making a business deal here. I do a little service and therefore I get something. You give me that, you give me something back, Krishna. Right? So to become a servant means, there is no unconditional, no motivation. But that's obviously takes some time, because we come from this material environment. We're conditioned. We're conditioned, right? And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what is night for the spiritualist is day for the materialist, and vice versa. So this day-night principle, and we're moving slowly from one consciousness. We're slowly moving to the other side. So we're in the twilight for most of our lives. Yeah? And so there's still ulterior motives there, but we can weed them out. And how do we weed them out? Again, through engaging in service, through chanting. The service is the goal and the cure at the same time. That's what that's the amazing thing in Krishna consciousness. And the more we put our heart into it, our conscious effort and our awareness into the process of what we're actually doing, the more quickly that purification takes place, the more quickly we come from the diseased material condition into a healthy condition, understanding our eternal our existence, our eternal position as servant of Krishna. And then when this relationship is fully established, and what does it mean? What does it mean we have a relationship established? And Prabhupada gives this nice example of like a young boy and a young girl. They're automatically so attracted. They're always thinking, oh, this other person. The other person is always in their mind. If you have a relationship which is deeply established, that person, that relationship is always present in the heart. We always think about that person. And how often does Krishna in Bhagavad Gita tell us, always think of me? Think of me, think of me. So many places he says that. Whatever you remember at the time of death, that's what you're gonna reach. So think of me, think of me, think of me, so you reach me. That's Bhagavad Gita in short, the abridged version. Right? And then that moment of death, when we leave that body, we understand what's happening. We understand philosophically maybe, but that's not enough. Philosophical understanding is not enough. But if our relationship with Krishna is established and he's present right there with us because we remember him, and even if our faculties are not there anymore for some reason or other, right? We may get a stroke, brain doesn't work, and doctors say, oh no, that, you know, brain doesn't work, he can't remember anything or so. No, Krishna makes sure, yeah, that's the personal aspect. Krishna makes sure that we will remember him. There's a pastime of a devotee, or a pastime situation. I think her name is Isha. I mentioned it before, Mother Isha. She had a stroke and she is in a care home and she couldn't remember anything. She couldn't recognize any devotees, nothing. She wouldn't even speak. But the only thing she would do is chant Hare Krishna all day long. And so everyone knew her in the rest home. When someone was visiting, the singing lady. And she was just chanting Hare Krishna. That's the only thing her brain could do. Krishna made sure she will remember him at death, whenever that will be. Right? So we can, and when our relationship with Krishna is established, obviously, then we can have that confidence that yes, Krishna is here. He is there for me. He's there for me. I don't have to worry. And Krishna tells us that in Bhagavad Gita. No, don't worry. Just surrender. And this surrender is loving relationship. It's not like, he's threatening us with a gun. Surrender. No, surrender voluntarily. And don't worry. Everything will be fine. So there's no fear for a devotee at the moment of death. But it all depends on the relationship. And the materialistic person is very fearful because he's Atmaha, killer of the soul. He has this amazing opportunity in a human form of life to remember the relationship with Krishna. There's so much facility there, the Vedic knowledge is there, the devotees are there, but he's not interested, and therefore he's the killer of the soul, and he doesn't know when he ever has this opportunity again, especially in this Kali Yuga. There's not much piety here. Everyone is engaged in sinful activities, so they're not having a human form in the next life. And that must be very fearful, right? It must be very fearful, especially then at the moment of death, when the Yamadutas are approaching, and people start, hearing voices. My grandmother, my father's side, she was hearing things, and it must be very scary because notice is coming. But for a devotee, there's no scary thing. Service will continue, the relationship with Krishna will continue, and that's all there is. And so towards the end of our life, there's one nice saying, if we want to live nicely, materialistically speaking, like Prabhupada says here, we're subject to the threefold miseries. We're actually not living nicely on the material level. But if we want to die nicely, we not, and prepare in the proper way by developing our relationship with Krishna, not only do we die nicely, but we also live very nicely. Because we're not subject to the threefold miseries. We're living on a different plane. So having that as life's goal, to die nicely, we automatically live nicely. Devotees have such a nice life. Right? And dying nicely means developing our relationship with Krishna, engaging in bhakti, and always think of him. And then Krishna will be right there when we leave our body. And yeah. So I think I'm gonna stop here. It's a big topic. We can just, it's so nice to discover different aspects. But I think we covered enough for the time being. Are there any questions, comments, corrections? So how do we take death? Do we conquer it? Yeah. Well, I'm not thinking so much, actually. I mean, also maybe denial. I don't know. But, you know, death is just, you know, change of clothes. Like, then it's a philosophical aspect, yeah. But yeah, when this relationship is there with Krishna, then see, there's one interesting pastime. I'd have to put my knees down. Hold on. Well, pastime. There's also a devotee leaving the body. He was young. He had some cancer, and he was also from Ukraine, and he came to Mayapur, India at one stage for some treatment. He wanted to actually go to South India for some treatment, but his body was just skin and bones. But he was young, so he was clinging. You know, he still thought he has something to do in this material world. He has such an important service. He was the Bhakta leader in Kiev. Yeah. So, and again, Devaki Mataji shares how she tried to help him to just let go and bring his mind to the spiritual world, because there was no way his body will make it. He was in his 30s, so he was very young when I understand it right, you know. So I don't. It must have been in the 30s. So she was bringing ISKCON art book for beautiful pictures of the spiritual world. Bring his mind there, because oftentimes visuals are easier than, you know, hearing when so much disturbance is there. And she got him into a kind of an acceptance of the situation. But then some other healer came, some whatever healer, and, you know, and he got some hope again that he can be healed. So, and the procedure was binding different types of bark on the hands and feet. And Mataji explained she was so upset because to give him hope, but then she was amazed. Actually, he got better for a few days. He started eating again. But then, of course, whoop, condition went down. So the hope keeps us very much alive. And she was asking, what is keeping you here? And I thought, well, I'm the Bhakta leader. But then afterwards, she realized that healer was actually good, because he smashed the last hope he had, that something in this material world is happening. You know, there's something there. And then he left, I think, during Gora Arti, just after he realized that, you know, that, okay, it was just the hope was keeping him alive, you know, like Hiranyakashipu, just in bones, you know, that there is something for me to achieve here. But once that hope was then smashed and his condition got worse, then he accepted that, you know. So ultimately, I'd say is that acceptance that death is inevitable. And as a devotee, because we should understand that we have nothing to do with this body, nothing to do with that soul, with that mind intelligence, that we are soul, that we're spiritual, and this body is actually almost an impediment to our service. So if we develop that relationship deeply with Krishna, if that becomes our life and soul, if we feel we need that relationship, then the physical death is kind of irrelevant, right? Bhakti Maharaj said on his last public appearance before he went into seclusion to pass, you know, to meet that final lesson, that, you know, this body is already dead, but now the subtle body has to die. So the false ego and devotional service kills the false ego ultimately. Yes. So as long as there's any trace of false ego left, that I am the enjoyer, that I have something to do in this material world, well, then we will come back. Obviously, if we engage in devotional service, then we will continue from where we you know, we take our devotional service further. But it's the subtle body which ultimately needs to die. Yeah? And that's done as soon as we firmly establish a servant, then the subtle body is already dead. Once the false ego is dead, we may still be in this body, acting while we're here, like Srila Prabhupada at the end of his life. When he churned the devotee's emotion by, oh, do you want me to stay? Do you want me to leave? He couldn't care less for himself, but he was just thinking, what is the best service I can do to Krishna, to help the devotees to keep ISKCON alive, to 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 nurture their spiritual life. His false ego, was already dead. you know so I'm not sure if that answers any of your questions, but that's kind of how how I try to see it. It's all about that relationship. And the body becomes just it's on the side, because we are not the body. Whatever happens to the body, not that I am at that level of understanding, also I have so much false ego, but that helps me to approach it and understand it, and gives me also a direction of what I need to do now, and in my life, to because that final lesson will come, and death is that moment which shows what's most important to us. Is it Krishna or is it something else? If it's something else, okay, then here you go. That state of being we will attain without fail. So we have to make Krishna the most important thing for us, and then we pass that test. Like when you prepared for a test, you look forward for the exam. But if you're not prepared, you're scared because you don't know if you can answer the questions, right? So yeah, so that is that moment. What is most important for us? Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, the Gaur Premananda Haribo.
Prabhu, you funny.